Hey everyone, Carlo here with AYCB, and today I'm going to be reviewing Nova Luna, which is a 1 to 4 player abstract tile laying game. It has simple rules and very few components, but a surprising amount of depth and complexity to each turn and decision. If you don't know how to play yet, check out our how to play video before going any further. Otherwise, stick around and let me tell you what I think about Nova Luna. First off, I have to say Nova Luna really surprised me. It sounds a bit crazy to say that because it's an Uwe Rosenberg game and I expect the very best from Uwe Rosenberg. He's one of my favorite designers. But I have to say, when I first saw this on Board Game Geek a few months back, I took a look at just the way the game played and everything. I didn't have the highest expectations for it, or I maybe wasn't the most interested in it, maybe because I have quite a few of these kind of light to light medium gateway style kind of abstract games that accommodate 2 to 4 players. So to me at first it felt like I have a lot of games kind of like this, so I dismissed it a bit. Then I was lucky enough to see it for about $30 before this whole pandemic started. I managed to get in a 4-player game, and lately I've been playing a ton of 2-player games with my wife, and we absolutely love it. We're surprised by how good it is, how quick it plays, and how much we're compelled to come back to it, even though we feel like we've kind of figured out what's going on in the game and seen all there is to see to an extent, but it still keeps pulling us in. A couple other quick things I'd like to mention before I get into what I do and don't like about the game. The first thing is this was just recently nominated for the Spiel des Jahres award. The other thing I'd like to mention is that Uwe Rosenberg, right in the rulebook, he credits Corné van Moorsel for the idea for the game. Basically, Corné van Moorsel released a game in 2016 called Habitats, and this kind of plays off that idea. And Corné van Moorsel was nice enough to let Uwe Rosenberg kind of play off this idea in his own design. Now, since there's a lot I like about this game, I'm going to start with what I don't like as much. The first thing, it's not that I hate it, but I would say the artwork and components is sort of just average. Personally, again, if I saw this on, I went to a game store and there were games all over the shelves, this might not catch my eye right away. The quality of the components is pretty good. I mean, the tiles are thick enough cardboard and whatnot. The colors are nice enough, but it's all fairly simple, fairly stripped down. The one thing I specifically don't like about the components is these player discs. They're a little bit too small. I find they get knocked around pretty easily, and even just when you're tracking them on the moon wheel, and sometimes they slip out of your fingers, or if you're trying to stack 3 or 4 on the same spot, the stack can tip over easily. Other than that, not really any serious complaints about the artwork and components. Another complaint I have, though, is just the theme. I mean, this is the case with a lot of abstract games. Some do it better than others, but it's basically just a very loose kind of moon theme without really feeling like you're doing a whole lot involving the moon. I guess they've kind of incorporated the whole new moon thing with the wheel and the cycles and the way that the tiles get refreshed, and it's kind of like a new moon, but it still just kind of feels tacked on. It's tacked on well enough, and it doesn't really draw away from the game for me, but if you're the type of person who's looking for some sort of thematic ties, it's going to be very, very minimal here. My last criticism of the game comes down to basically the box size and the price of the game. So as I said before, I was lucky enough to pick this up. It wasn't even on sale, it was just regular price about 3-4 months ago for, I think it was like $32 Canadian. Then it went out of stock a lot of places for a while. I just checked today, and everywhere now is between 45 and 50 Canadian. I've seen it for upwards of $50 US. And I mean, this is a tiny box, very few components. I can basically hold everything in my hands. You could fit this all into a pouch basically for a travel game, aside from the moon wheel, which is also kind of unnecessarily big. If I was rating this as like a $30 game or $25 game, $20 game, it's amazing. I would never pay $45 or $50 for this, and it's a shame because I think some people are going to see the price tag and they're going to take a pass on it because not many people want to spend upwards of $45-50 on a fairly light kind of abstract game with not much theme. When you open the box, you're going to be surprised. There's all the components and everything take up maybe about a quarter of the box. And I've read some speculation online that they might have done this on purpose to allow for expansions in the future, for more variability, so that you can have it all in one box. And if that's the case, then you might be actually happy about that if you plan on getting the expansions. But it also feels kind of odd that if I buy a game and I don't want to get the expansions, that 75% of the box is empty and it's taking up spot on my shelf. And obviously I say this as someone who loves to own a lot of games, so this might not be a problem for everyone. I don't think it's fair to call it a criticism, but just be aware that you could fit all the components for this. Aside from this giant moon wheel, which doesn't really need to be this big, you could fit this in a much smaller package, so it just seems like a bit of wasted space. Now let's get to what I do like, which I like a lot about this game actually. There's quite a few similarities to Patchwork, which you might have noticed if you're familiar with Patchwork. The whole aspect of the the player who's furthest back on the track getting to go. I really like how that mixes up the turn order. There are times where you take a turn and you might grab a tile with a 6 or a 7 on it that moves you way far up the board, and depending how many players there are, you might not get a turn for 6, 7 turns. You might watch the same players going back and forth taking turns as you're way far ahead on the track waiting for them to catch up, so it adds a layer of sort of unpredictability and also variability to the game. I'd also have to praise the accessibility of the game. Not only is it super easy to teach, only takes a couple minutes really, it plays really quickly, and it's different, like a truly different game at all player counts. With 2 players, it's a lot more strategic because every time the moon wheel is filled, you get to see those 11 tiles and have an idea of, you might be able to see that you're probably going to get 4 or 5 of those tiles or 6 of those tiles out of those 11 before it gets refilled, so you can kind of plan and see what you want a bit more. Let's say on the extreme of 4 players, you might only get, 2 of those tiles on the moon wheel, and you might not even know when you take the first one what's even going to be available to you next time it comes around. So I find at higher players it's more tactical. You're having to sort of change what you're doing on the fly and adapt to the constantly changing state, and there's a lot longer between your turns, so you just kind of have to take what the best option is for you each time rather than planning ahead. There's also a pretty neat solo mode which kind of plays the game in 2 phases. I won't get into it too much, but basically it's a good way, it seems, to kind of learn the basics of the game and improve your efficiency of how many goals you're completing versus how much you're advancing on the time track. I really like how there is no score in this, and it's kind of a race, but it's a race of efficiency. Who's doing the better job of optimizing their choices on the moon wheel, as well as completing goals and leaving openings to add on other tiles to complete more goals. There's, again, for a game that really just has these tiles and these discs that show you how to complete your goals, there's a surprising amount to think about on your turn. It's not often that I feel so compelled to come back to a game so soon after I feel like I've kind of seen everything there is to see. After 2 or 3 plays, it's not like you're going to unlock some new game-breaking strategy. The fact that I've played this 5, 6, 7 times and I still want to keep playing it is a good sign that I think it really does have some serious lasting power. Another thing that makes these choices so difficult is that you a lot of the time feel like you're encouraged to prioritize tiles of the same color. If you have a bunch of, let's say, red tiles all lined up, then you know that any tile you take that requires, let's say, 2 or 3 red tiles, you can place it next there and you might have these goals already completed. So sometimes you feel like, oh, I'm just going to get a lot of reds. But usually when you have a tile of a certain color, the goal requirements are often telling you to get tiles of different colors. So if you try and be too picky about just going for 1 or 2 colors, you're going to have a lot of unresolved goals. So there's that kind of balance of, do you want to sort of prioritize one a little more to have one easy chain? Or do you want to go kind of spread yourself out in all the colors? And again, it really depends, because you might refill the moon wheel and suddenly there's only 1 yellow tile and you banked on getting a whole bunch, and now you got to completely switch things up and start grabbing tiles of different colors. And that's pretty much all I've got to say about Nova Luna. I highly recommend you check this one out if you're into these abstract kind of games. If you're looking for another kind of gateway style game to add to your collection, this is a great choice. You can't go wrong with it. Thanks for watching. If you like what you see, please hit the subscribe button. You can check out our website at allyoucanboard.com for any more info, or follow us on social media. Thanks, and see you again next time.